Okay, I didn't transition that very well, but I'm still a rookie at this stuff. Hi everyone, thanks for being with us tonight. Got another episode of Bringing Life to Characters, and I have someone who we met a lot. My wife actually met a long time ago, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And I'm going to bring her up here, but she actually just lives up the road from us a little ways. Tricia Copeland is with us tonight. Hi, Tricia. It's good to see you
Hi.
again.
Thank you, you too.
So I live in Westminster. I think you live Boulder, Superior, somewhere in there.
Superior, yes.
Yeah. So we met at PennCon, which is an event that's not being held anymore. I don't think. I don't think Amy and them are running them anymore. And
No, yeah.
but in St. Louis, and we were sitting in the. My wife was sitting in the airport. I think I'd gone to the bathroom, or I went to one of the shops to get water or something. And I came back, and my wife goes, "Tricia and Tia was with you as well," and you're like, "They're from Colorado." And I don't think we ran into you at all at the whole event.
No, I don't think so either. I think we were on the same flight, and that's why we were like sitting there waiting for the plane.
They're in St. Louis, Missouri, and that was a fun event. It was a very old hotel that was being held in. I always often wondered if that was a haunted hotel because it seemed like it was.
Yeah, I didn't want to get on the elevators in that hotel. I was taking the stairs the whole time.
Yeah, I think they were a little suspect too, and I remember too when we went down because Bush Stadium was just down the road there, and we went down to a hotel, a restaurant down the road, walked down there, and there was a Federal Reserve there, and there was a guard that was walking around the outside of the Federal Reserve. That's what he did all day, and I'm going, wow, that's a pretty boring job. And,
I guess you get your steps in, right? You see lots of interesting people.
he was working out. But anyway, thanks again for being on. Been wanting to get you on for a little while now, so give us a little background on yourself, all the important stuff that people should know about Tricia.
Right. So I started writing. Well, I started writing in like 2008, and it was kind of just to entertain myself. And I didn't really expect to publish, but fast forward 7 years, and I have a sister-in-law. And actually, Tia was one of my friends, or is still my friend, but she's a friend of mine, and she was an indie published author and editor. And my sister-in-law is like, you need to publish this. You need to publish this. So I did query. I tried to query, but Harlequin was like, we want this in one book. And I was like, nope, this is not one book. But I started writing a fictionalized account of my experience with anorexia. I was anorexic as a young adult and had recovered from that. And looking back at my life, I thought, this is something that could like inspire and show hope and show people that there is like good things at the other end of this experience or that can come from this experience. So that was my first foray. I didn't ever, all these authors I talked to, like, yes, I always loved writing from a young age, did not love writing. I was a technical writer and never thought of myself as a creative, but that launched my love of writing. So since then, I've published over 20 books. I have young adult fantasy. I have new adult faded black romances. I even have a dystopian series. I have an Aztec mythology book. So it kind of spans the gamut of um, all the genres almost.
Yeah, that you've been very busy. So you said you were a technical writer before. So obviously there's a big difference between being a technical writer and a fictional writer. But you probably were pretty good at least at the grammar aspect and the spelling and all those things, maybe, right? So
Right. Yeah. So I have a background in science and I got my master's degree. And so writing articles for journals, obviously writing your dissertation, and then moving into the patent space where I was writing patent applications. So that sort of, I mean, patent applications are sort of a little bit creative, but I don't think I realized it at the time.
nobody ever dies in them, right? Or there's no magic or
No,
witchcraft or anything. Huh?
no.
So, and I know you're a big runner, marathon run. Well, I don't know if you do marathons, but I know you do Boulder a lot. So, how did you get into running? What do you find that you enjoy about running?
Okay, so the others, this is another link to Tia.
Yeah.
So I ran as a young adult when I was in high school and college a little bit, and then hadn't ran since then. But when I first moved to Colorado, all these people are so fit here. I mean, I moved from the East Coast, and I would always tell everybody, I'm not really a Colorado person because I don't ski. I didn't run at the time. I loved hiking, but that was about it as far as Colorado.
Riding bikes. Everybody seems to ride a bike around here
Right.
too.
I'm not good on bikes either. So, but Tia, for her 40th birthday, she wanted to run a half marathon. And I thought, I am such a good friend to you, Tia. I will run a half marathon with you. So we ran a half marathon, and I've been running ever since. And that was like, yeah, probably 13 years ago.
So what do you feel like you get? Obviously, the physical endurance, but are you able to? Is your focus totally on the run, or does your mind do other things while you're running?
No, I mean, most of my stories were written when I was running because
Yeah.
it's just a space where you don't have to think about anything else. And I think the adrenaline helps too when you're thinking or when you're being creative or you're trying to be creative. So, yeah, I would start thinking about my plot, my characters, my worlds. I could think about what's going to come next, what works, what doesn't work. And so lots of good time to get good thinking in.
You can't really make notes though while you're running, right? So it's all stored up here, or
That's true. I guess if you wanted to record yourself, you
you
could
could.
talk to yourself while you're running and record on your phone. That would be
So do you have any runners in your books?
almost a lot of my characters like to run. I
Yeah.
do I do
Yeah.
tend to incorporate that. If you read my books, especially my dystopian book, they run basically all the way from California to Kentucky.
Oh wow.
Obviously taking breaks and sleeping at night, but um, yeah, so that was an interesting thing to kind of put in there. And I think I would actually kind of like that, but I would need like at least a 3-star hotel at night. I don't camp either. So that's another Colorado thing I don't do.
You really are. It used to have the native and the alien and all that bumper stickers for years and years. You don't really see those as much. Yours was definitely you were definitely not a resident of Colorado when you first
I
came
grew
out here.
up camping with my family, and I don't know, it was South Georgia, and there was bugs and there were snakes and there was humidity, and I know you don't have a lot of those things here, but I can't do it.
Well, we do get some bugs and we do get some snakes depending on the stuff. I always was in a tent for years and years and years, and when Kim and I got together, her family had always had motorhomes, so we eventually transitioned. Now we have motorhomes. So we call it camping, but it's really not camping. It's taking your home with you on the road. So
Well, to me that would be camping, so I don't even like to do that very
yeah.
much.
So do you have any other hobbies, and what else do you do to decompress? Obviously, you run for your creative process, but are there things you do that help you decompress, get the stress out of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I have a dog, so he needs to be walked every day. He's a very high energy dog, and I love hiking, whether it's by myself or with my family. So we do
Mhm.
that a lot.
Well, that's pretty Colorado, at least the
Yeah.
hiking part of it. So you're pretty good there, hiking and running and stuff. So you, you never really thought of yourself as being a writer other than a technical writer. So when you were young, were there books that you liked? Were you a big reader? Did you enjoy reading, or did that come later in life?
No, I loved reading, and the first fantasy series I remember reading was The Wizard of Oz, or Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, or
Mhm.
Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz, I think was the name. But there were like 13 of those books, and each one was about a different character. Like there was the Tin Man, and there were all these other characters that you don't get in the regular movie.
Yeah.
But so that was my first like jump into fantasy, and I loved reading about Merlin. I loved the Crystal Cave and a lot of those stories, King Arthur and Merlin and those medieval fantasies. So, and Lord of the Rings, I love that series.
Sure.
And when I got into college, I didn't read a lot because you didn't have time because I was reading textbooks. But after I got out of college, I started back reading. So
So, what was one of the first things that you remember writing that you wrote for fun, fictional or non-fictional? Was it the story that you were telling us about before?
Right. The Being Me series, I had three young kids. I was a stay at home mom, and I just started writing this story about a girl like me who developed anorexia. And I really wrote it as it, it read more like a screenplay. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just having fun making up scenes. And it was mostly dialogue and a little bit of action in the dialogue, going from scene to scene. And just kind of embellishing my story of she's much more fun character than me. I was maybe too studious in college. Can you be too studious in college? Probably not. But I was very studious. So she had more fun than I did. But yeah, definitely writing that story was my first jump into fiction writing. And it took me that 7 years. At the end, I had a manuscript of like 160,000 words. And then I gave it to Tia, who is my editor, and she helped me. We broke it into 2 books, and she helped me, okay, it doesn't need to be all dialogue here,
Right.
and get the story arcs correct, and make sure we have the character development, and they were, ending at good places, and all of those things you need to do. So I've taken a lot of courses over, especially in the first few years of my writing career, how to do plot and how to do character development and those types of things.
So you feel like over time your writing has evolved and obviously gotten sharper. And I mean, we all need editors. We always need critiques and things like that, no matter what we write. But maybe not as much as you did in the beginning, where it was.
Well, yeah, and it was just free formed. It really wasn't, because I was just following my story. I didn't even think about introduction,
Yeah.
a plot line, the climax, the resolution. I didn't even, probably at one point in high school, somebody taught me that, but I had no memory of that. So now, when I have an idea, that's the way I start. Like I start with my plot structure, and I have an idea of a couple of the high points and low points, and then fill in between, and definitely have a more, organized approach to writing now.
Yeah, we'll talk about your writing process a little bit later because I always like to ask people, pantster or plotter, but we'll get into that. So you told us a little bit about that book. So to give us a little more about some of your other books, and I've got a few pictures of some of the books. You could tell me which ones to throw up here. But so where did you transition? What was your next after you wrote that? It
Right.
was
So
two books.
the BME series actually ended up being 4 books.
Oh,
So it follows a girl from her freshman year in college to her through her senior year in college. And then my favorite genre is fantasy. So jumped very quickly into the fantasy realm. And my goal was to write a vampire book because they were my favorite characters. And I dreamed up this character who was half vampire, half witch, who became Alina in the Kingdom Journals. With the first of that book is The Kingdom of Embers. But it didn't end up a vampire book or even a vampire series. So it's a story, or the Kingdom Journals is a series, I guess, about 3 witches, a trinity of witches who have to come together to break a curse on the witch lines. It's YA fantasy, urban fantasy esque. So every 100 years, these 3 witches are born. If they find each other and if they figure out how to break the curse, then all of the witch souls will no longer go to purgatory, which was the curse that they're trying to break. So that was my first fantasy series, and led into this 10-book really crossover fantasy series, the first of which is the Kingdom Journals is the first series, and then the Realm Chronicles is the crossover series. That's a Fae fantasy series, but carries through the same villain antagonist and some of the same characters from the Kingdom Journals that show up in the Fae series.
so I was just looking to see what I have here when it comes to your covers to throw up. So I know you've got this was one of the Fae series. Is that the one that you were just talking about? That's a ten books.
Right. So there's two different series and 10 books in the whole series. So that's the finale to the Realm Chronicles series. And really it finishes what the Kingdom Journals started too. So because that villain carries through both of the series, to be a fae really is the culmination or okay, I won't say the fixing or the ending to that whole saga of trying to get rid of Sonia, who was an evil in the Fae series. She's an evil witch spirit at the time, but is a very real witch in the beginning of the Kingdom Journal series.
So 10 books. So basically, the whole 10 books is basically the one big long storyline for the series. I'm sure you have a bunch of subplots too and stuff in there, but for 10 books, that's pretty incredible. Did you have that kind of all mapped out in your head at the start with, or did it kind of just grow over time as you started writing?
Yeah, it just happened. So the Kingdom Journals was planned out for the most part. One character did surprise me, and he got his own book. So that made the Kingdom Journals 4 books plus a prequel, but each written. Why it's called Kingdom Journals? It's each told through the story of a different voice of a different witch. So you get a first-person account of their backstory plus the continuing story of these witches figuring out how to break this curse. While I was writing the finale in the Kingdom Journal series, which is Kingdom of War, there was another call for a fantasy story to submit to an anthology that had a character with mental health challenges. They had to be a fantasy character with mental health challenges. And on that, I guess on that application, there was an image of Fairy who was hunched in a meadow, and she looked scared or she looked anxious, and it was just a really compelling image to me. I had never written about fairies, never read fairies, had no clue, except for Peter Pan, right?
Right.
But I wrote this short story about a young fairy princess. Her name is Titania, who you see on the cover here. And she is handed the crown to her kingdom at age 15. And she has this anxiety disorder in the first short story I wrote about. But the Kingdom Journals has this big battle with a vampire army who has been imbued with witch souls by the evil villain Sonia. And they needed an army. The witches needed an army to fight this vampire army. And I thought, oh, who's going to come help the witches? The fairies can come help the witches. So I wrote Titania and her fairy army into the finale to the Kingdom Journal series. And then, of course, Titania had to have her own book and her own story, which turned out to be a 5-book series called The Realm Chronicles. So it just kind of keeps blossoming out like this.
I thought it was funny when you said that the character surprised you and you decided to write a. I always often talk about that the characters oftentimes are with me in the room, and they're sometimes whispering to me, give me more to do or whatever and stuff. I don't know if that's what happens with you when you're writing these, when you say stuff like that, but.
Yeah, this one character, he was supposed to be a villain character, and he was just pretending to be so nice and he was being so nice that I just decided not to make him a villain. So, and somehow he got his own book too. So,
Well, hopefully he paid you off for giving him his own series, right? So.
yeah, he redeemed himself. He did a good job.
So those sound very intricate. Sounds like there's probably a lot of characters in a 10-book series like that. So how do you keep track of all that stuff? And we'll get into that. A plotter, pantster, or do you plot everything, all this stuff out in advance, and the characters and the names? I mean, some of those names are, you can't really use John and Jim usually. They kind of be. I mean, you probably could, but.
Right. I do. So originally I was very handwriting a lot of things. So I have a notebook still with my original ideas for these witches and how the witches came to be and the different witch lines and which lines had what powers and the names of the different witches. And then eventually I did put that in an electronic document so it would not be lost ever.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I always have the Kingdom Journals. I knew where I wanted the series to begin and where I wanted it to end, and then I figured out each book and what would happen in each book leading up to that, except for that one that was like a surprise book. But so I have that good idea, and I have like a rough idea of major plot points. And I world build, and the world building is sort of in the background too. I have to know that before I can go forward. But other than that, I fill in. Like I tried one time to write an outline of what was going to be happen in a chapter, and I was so bored I didn't want to write it. Like I was like, well, I'm just writing what I already thought of, and I already know what I'm going to write, so that's not fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, my editor finally did get me to writing outlines after I read a chapter. So after the chapter ended and I was finished, then I could write a little outline of what happened, so we could go back and more quickly like remember what happened where and what character was doing what and those type of things. So she got me to that point. I think that's as far as I'll probably go.
So it sounds as if these books really should be read from the beginning, right? Because there is a lot of, or are they written somewhat that you could start in the middle?
You could start in the middle. Like I have a whole guide on my website of like, if you want to go chronologically, you can go chronologically, but you could start with the Realm Chronicles series, which is really happens after the Kingdom Journal series, and then go back, because the quest with the witches in the Kingdom Journal series is really separate, as kind of a separate quest from the quest in the Realm Chronicles series. So you can go back and see their backstory and their history, even though it's like only a couple of years. But yeah, so you could really read them either way.
So you got a nice little flow chart on your website that kind of points where everything leads and the connections between them and all that.
Right.
So you've got all these books, and I'm thinking, wow, 10 books. And did you always, when you were writing, did you kind of have to refer back to some of the earlier books to make sure you kept the continuity, or are you keeping that all up here?
It's mostly up here, but yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely have to go back and read. I mean, I have audiobooks, so that makes it easy too. Like I can listen, usually when I'm preparing for the next book, I can listen to the audiobook in the car as I'm driving around, and that gives me like a really good like immersion into who the character, reminding myself who the characters are, like how they act, what their mannerisms are, what their motivations are, and kind of the tone of the characters. So I like to do that before I'm writing the next book, just to kind of immerse myself in that world again.
So then all these books are available as audiobooks as well?
So all the Kingdom Journals are on audiobooks. The first 3 books of the Realm Chronicles series is out in audiobook. The next one will be coming out this month, hopefully. I am proofing it. I'm like on the last 2 chapters of proofing it. So I'm going to upload it next week, and that will come out. And then the finale audiobook will come out this summer.
And you have the same narrator for all your books, or are you doing them yourselves?
Oh, no. I do not narrate. I tried it once. The guy was like, okay, well, we'll see if we want you to do this. So it's like, no, I don't want to do this. I've got great narrators. Amy Duchler started the Kingdom Journal series, and there's 2 books that have a male voice lead. So Dan Delgado did those for me, and then Jillian Yetter did the first 3 books in the Realm Chronicles series. And we actually won an award for the second book of the series through the IBPA, Independent Book Publishers Association. So that was super fun. I got to go to the award ceremony with Jillian. And now Tina Wollstonecraft is now doing the last 2 books in the Realm Chronicles series.
Well, there's a lot of, I'm not sure how big your books are. I don't know if they're huge, but obviously there's a lot involved in creating an audiobook, editing, and all that stuff. And so everyone always asks me too, do you do your own, especially the Jarvis series, because it's first person and everybody thinks I'm Jarvis. And I go, no, I don't think I have the patience for doing that. I don't think I have the skill level to do it either, and especially the editing.
Yeah, I think, even my narrator has separate editors. I mean, she's not the narrator. She's not the editor. So yeah, it's amazing what they can do, because they can just like record one word, and then the editors can just slip it in, and you will never know that it wasn't said at the same time, like in the same sentence. So I don't know how that technology works, but it's amazing.
Yeah, you've got to have good software, and you usually need to have a decent recording room as well, and good good microphones and all those things. So what about some of your other series? I know we've got some covers here. I know you said you have a dysphonia as well type of series. What else? What other books you want to talk about?
Right. So I do have a 2-book dystopian series. It's 2 books right now.
Yeah.
Was um, I wrote it in 2018. I guess I published the first one in 2018. Weirdly, about a pandemic that sweeps the globe. So it's not as popular right now, not surprisingly. But really, the characters aren't in the pandemic. So their parents are in the military, and it's a futuristic thing too. So their parents in the military see this coming, and they ship their kids to the desert with this group and community that's trying to find a cure. Well, fast forward, her sister gets the virus, and then she decides, well, I have to be the one that cures my sister. So 2 of the main characters kind of go rogue, and they try to find a way to, and they really do some pretty surprising things for age 16 and 18 teenagers, but they have skills because their parents are military and they've been trained. So that was a fun book to write because I include Colorado, and they come to Colorado, but it's very futuristic. So it's in um, the climate change has forced everybody to move north, and Colorado is basically a wasteland now. And so it was really fun to think about that, but set it somewhere that I've been to, and how would it look different if the whole United States was basically warmed to the point of being almost uninhabitable. So that was fun to write. The follow up to that, so that's Lovelock Ones is the name of that book. The follow up to that is the
Little
follow up to
DNA
that is
strand there looks like.
yeah. So I was able to pull in my background in biotechnology for that one. So that was a fun one.
And you don't do your own covers. You have somebody that do your covers for you as well?
Right. I have a local person to do some of my covers. The local person did that one, Damn Cool Graphics. So it's Daryl McCool with Damn Cool Graphics. That's fun. Yeah. So, and then for my fairy series, Shower Smith in the UK does my fairy series. So yeah.
And so this is book 2 here?
That's book 1.
That's
yeah.
book 1.
And then, right. Book 2 is Torch. And in Torch, Gemma and Troy, the 2 characters you see here on the cover, her uncle decides that he's going to, well, not to give too much away, they do find a cure, but then her uncle decides that he's just going to keep it for the country that is now the United States, and he's not going to share it with the rest of the world. And Gemma and Troy decide that this is not right. They want the cure to be shared with the rest of the world, so they go on a little mission to overthrow the government. So yeah, I mean, that's going from magic and vampires to that was fun.
Definitely different. And so 2 books in that series. Are there going to be any more, or do you think that one's pretty much done for now?
There should be another one because Gemma's sister is now with her uncle. Her uncle is kind of holding her sister, I guess. He kind of kidnapped her, and it depends on which side of the story you're on. But so Gemma's sister is still being held by the evil uncle, and her mother is being held by the evil uncle. And so I really need to get them back, but it's really hard for me to go back there because it's still in like this pandemic phase. And to think about writing a book about being in a pandemic world is hard for me. So I'll go back there hopefully eventually and save Gemma's sister. But it's, I get very emotionally invested in these things, and the things you have to put your characters through, like, physically hurt me sometimes. Yeah.
Sure. Well, the pandemic was definitely interesting is not the right word, but it's just, it was just amazing how it came to be. And we've been thinking this was going to happen somewhere along the line, and just to shut down the world, basically, everyone hiding out at home and wearing masks and everything. It was interesting. I know that for me, I was like, am I going to write this in my books or not? And I eventually decided to do it a little bit in my Private Eye series just because it was a storyline that worked well because he owned a bar. So that was forced him to get back into the Private Eye world because his bar couldn't stay open enough and he was struggling financially. So that it made sense, but I didn't dwell on it a lot other than just a few comments here and there about mass and various other things and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm sure when you're delving into an entire world where that's happening, it can be very tough to write.
Yeah, and that's why I write romance.
That's right.
So all the horrible things I do to my fantasy characters and my dystopian characters, then after I write one of those, I have to have an emotional cleanse.
Yes.
And I write a fun, happily ever romance where the worst thing that happens is your boyfriend breaks up with you.
So the other cover you sent me was The Perfect Office Pack. Is that one of the romance books?
Right. So my pen name for my romance or my perfect romance series is Maria Jane, which is a combination of my sister and my grandmother's names, who were very influential and loved romance.
Sure.
So um, that, yeah, I like writing these romances because actually they're getting kind of long. And this last one that comes out, or the next one that comes out in June, is going to be called Perfect Secrets. And it dipped into your crime world a little bit and have
Yeah.
a little bit of crime in there. And there's a case, like a court case and a grand jury trial and so some of those things. But Perfect Office Pact is, not surprisingly, an office romance with these two characters, Mira and, man, what is his name? Okay, I'll remember his name in a minute. Declan. There we go. Declan. And he is her boss, and he used to be her professor. And she thinks he hates her. And of course, he doesn't hate her. He's really attracted to her. But, while they're working together, they shouldn't get together. And, things ensue. So it was fun to write. Declan is also a neurodiverse character, which was my first neurodiverse character to write. So that was a lot of research for that type of character.
So yeah, the office romance, is not supposed to happen, but anyone who's ever worked in an office, there's usually a couple going on. No matter how they try to keep it secret, it never. I'm sure there's probably some backstory there too about people learning about it and the gossip about it and everything else. I'm sure.
Well, I met my husband at a job,
There
so
you
that's
go.
yeah.
Also,
That's
I
where
met
you met
Kim.
people back in the day.
That's where I met Kim too. So it was at work as well. And she eventually quit the job. It's like, okay, if we're going to go out, one of us has got to. We can't work at the same place anymore. That's too difficult. So all right. So you've got that. So Maria, so why did you decide a different name for the romance? It just because is that smarter to do when it comes to different genres like that?
You don't have to. Like, Colleen Hoover is one of the most famous authors who's written fantasy as well as romances, and kind of goes back and forth with her same pen name. So I didn't really have to. And my editor, I have a new editor now, Joe, with Indie Books Gone Wild. I will plug them. Tia and Joe both work for Indie Books Gone Wild, amazing editors, formatters, cover people. So Joe actually said, no, don't do two pen names. It's too hard. You won't like it. You have to do double everything. And to a certain extent, that's right. But I didn't want people that were reading my young adult fantasy to jump over and read a romance that didn't make sense for them. And there are a lot of readers who are going to read YA fantasy and romance too. I mean, my romance is not erotic. It's fade to black or closed door. So you get a little bit spicy scenes. I think it's only like a 2 chili pepper on the TikTok chili pepper anyway. I don't know if you pay attention to those things, but it's only like a 1 or a 2. So it's a very low spice level, but there is some spice. And you probably won't want your 13-year-old reading about adults and romantic relationships, right? But definitely my fantasy series are appropriate for 12 to 13 up. So we only have kissing, and that's the most we get is like, sweet pecks on the lips in those series. So that's kind of my reasoning for doing that. And setting those apart.
Well, I know I get parents asking me all the time. It's like, is my book's appropriate for their daughter or son? And I said, well, that's up to you, because I have some that are saying, I said, well, there's death and there's violence and there's a little bit of adult content, there's language, and they go, oh, you mean what I see every day on TV, there's like, so some parents, my parents would have never let me read any of my books at that time. So it's a lot different now, I think, when it comes, and I always leave it up to the parent to decide. And you'd be surprised sometimes, they're like, yeah, no big deal. So, is there romance at all in your young adults? As I don't know, people, is there a little bit of romance involved with some of the characters?
Yeah, every one of my books always has like a love story subplot in there, and it's greater or lesser depending on what book you pick up. And but yeah, there's always, I mean, that's kind of part of life, right? Somebody's always falling in love with somebody. So yeah, there definitely is a love story in every one of my books, and most of them have happy ending, happily ever after endings.
Yes, HEA, right, as everyone says, right? So I know you have you do your own you have your own publishing company now too for some of your books, or all your books.
Right, for all my books, yeah, I self-published all my books through I have a it's my publishing company, so I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a publishing company, but it's indie published. Me.
All
Me,
right.
myself, and I. Yeah.
So yeah, so you're incorporated or whatever, I'm assuming.
Right.
Got your own man. And what's the name of the publishing company?
True Bird Publishing.
Okay, yeah, I'd put that down here somewhere, but now I'm not seeing it.
That's okay.
And and have you thoughts of expanding and bringing other authors into your publishing company at all, or is this something
Probably
you really?
not,
Yeah,
unless it did, you know, is my second career or something like that. But
yeah,
right now I have two careers and that's enough. So
yeah. So then you just send the book. You obviously send them to printers, and the printers print them up and stuff um, for you and everything. So obviously you did get the formatting taken care of. You have cover artists that do your covers and everything, editors and all that. So
right.
so and again, that's the one thing about being independent or self-published is, yeah, you get all the profits, sort of. They always say that, but that's not true, because if you put it on, I'm sure you're on Amazon, right? And they take their 35% cut, as everybody else does. But the nice thing is you are in control. And I know that was for me a big thing. I didn't have the patience to wait. I wanted to make my own decisions. Is that what you felt too when it came to publishing? Because you mentioned that first one, they wanted to break it up, and you're like, no, I don't want to do that.
No, they
Yeah.
actually wanted it to be one book.
One
So
book. You
yeah.
wanted to break it
So
up. Sorry. Yeah.
right. So they, I queried, I talked to tons of authors, some with Penguin and Random House, and some with small publishers and some indie published. But the ones I talked to who get like a list publisher, it takes them 2 to 3 years to get an agent, sometimes to get a publisher. And you have to be really patient. Number one, I wasn't that patient. So if you are patient, then that's a good route to go. But also Harlequin, like when I was querying, Harlequin came back and said, well, we want this to be one book. And I thought, this can't be one book. I can't explain. I mean, I could. I probably could have, but to me it didn't do it justice to dive into all the factors that go into someone developing an eating disorder, or and the you know
Right.
and the nuances of eating disorders, or in any mental health challenge. So I just wanted to show more than just like beginning, middle, end, right?
Right.
So yeah, I decided to publish myself, and then yeah, it's the control. I get to do what I want with my characters when I want to, and I get to pick my covers, and so yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm sure Harlequin is like, it had to be a certain word count, right? That's like all their books are probably exactly the same size, pages, everything, right? It's like, we never want to be above this point. So they told you that, and you're like, yeah. So are you a diligent writer? Are you one of those that writes every day?
When I'm writing a book, I like to write every day, and I try to, because it really keeps my story going. I mean, if I'm writing a book, like I'm driving around, I'm thinking about my characters. I'm in the grocery store, I'm thinking about my characters. I'm washing my dishes, I'm thinking about my characters and what they're doing next or what they just did and all of those things. So I'm totally immersed when I'm writing a book. And that's what keeps me going. I guess it's I lose momentum if I don't do it that way. So you have to go back and read and remember where you were and all of those things. Um, but I like it too. Like it's kind of like living another life or a double life. It takes me out of my normal doldrums, which really aren't that bad, and just puts me in another place. So it's I like it. It's fun, and I guess I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun, right?
So how long do you feel like it takes you to write a book? Obviously, it depends on the length of the book and all that, but you once you get going, does it usually come out pretty quickly for you?
I've done one in as little as 6 weeks, so
Mhm.
I can do them pretty fast, but it's usually more like 3 months ish to write a book. I think my last one was 3 to 4 months. It's like 120,000 words, so it's a longer book.
Yeah.
Um, and then the editing process is usually about 6 weeks to 2 months, going back and forth with the editor and the proofreaders. So, yeah.
Do you have a lot of do you have beta readers and things like that as well that read early versions to help you out
Yeah,
also?
I have a couple beta readers that are great, and of course, all my ARC readers after the fact. So,
So how do you think how you feel that we talked a little bit about this? How do you feel that your writing has changed through the years? When obviously from where you started and where you're at now, the evolution of the writing process. How has that changed for you? You think?
well, it's definitely tightened up. Like I know like what needs to come next, like what a reader is expecting to come next, what works in a story, and especially for that fast-paced YA fantasy, it really needs, you really need to move the story along, and you really need to make sure you have certain, points in there that the reader is expecting to see so they're not getting bored. Even like going back to some of my Kingdom Journals books, I probably would tighten up the story a little bit more. Maybe, did a little bit, maybe too long of world building at the beginning of, I didn't think it was too long, but I get one review that says something negative, and I'm going to remember that one review forever. I can get 99 that are great, but I'm going to remember the one that's negative. So anyway, I shouldn't harp on that. But so yeah, and I took a screenwriting course, which was very interesting too. So I think like learning about screenwriting and how tight a script and screenplay or script needs to be as far as plot, and the fact that you have to focus on one plot and one or two or to usually a small number of characters, um, can help you really tighten things up as far as plot goes, and then maybe past that, like layering the subplots and the backstories and all of those things, which so yeah, I think it's just a tighter process and maybe a quicker process for me now.
Do you ever want to write a screenplay?
I did. I wrote a screenplay for Kingdom of Embers, and it's just still sitting there on my computer. But it was so interesting. I really got why you have a book, and then when you put it on the screen, it's completely different. I mean, a lot of them haven't been. Like a lot of the directors and screenwriters have stayed pretty true to what the author wrote. But even in adapting my own book, I kind of veered from like really what was there, and having that experience, I might have gone back and written it differently in the beginning, right? So um anyway, yeah, so I get why they kind of get adapted to be a little bit different, because I definitely veered from exactly what was in the book.
So there's a book that you want to write that you haven't written yet? Something that's kind of burning a hole in the back of your head? Something a little different, maybe?
I do. I was very smart. So I knew I didn't want to go back to the Realm Chronicles characters because I did lots of horrible things to them. And they do get their happily ever afters, but they went through a lot. Like I was just listening to, like I said, I was just proofing my audiobook for the fourth book of the series, and I was crying. Like my daughter was like, Mom, are you okay? And I'm like, it just happened. So yeah, so I do horrible things to them, so I can't go back to that world because I mean, if really you have to put your characters back in jeopardy for them to come out on the top again, right?
Right.
So, but I did put a group of characters in the finale to be a fae that are a diverse group of fantasy characters. So they had to bring together, well, no, I won't tell you that. Anyway, I don't want to give too much away, but I
Yeah.
did bring some new characters in. Like there's a Nyx character that I've written a short story about, and a Nyx is a fish, a shifter that turns into a fish. So I've written a short story about that Brynja, that character who they're looking for their lost city that was covered over in the Fae realm. So Brynja goes back to the Fae realm in the short story. So that might be another novel or another series. Usually my series start as short stories and then they grow from there. So yeah, and I have, like I said, I have a romance, Perfect Secrets, coming out in June. And then I have another romance that's like a third of the way written. So that one will come out eventually. And then, yeah, this Nyx character seems to be my next interest to see how I could flesh that out into a full-length novel.
So the romance one is the one you're currently working on now?
Yes, it's in editing stages. It'll be back from my proofreader like next week. So it's coming out in June.
You work on 2 or 3 books at the same time? Or are you one of those that kind of jumps around? Or are you pretty much, I'm focused on this one and the next one will come after it?
Yeah, it's only one at a time. My brain can't deal with jumping back and forth. Yeah.
Especially since you're torturing characters in all those books, you'd be an emotional wreck.
I would be an emotional wreck, yeah.
Okay, so I always ask, we got about 15 minutes left here. I always ask this question. Everyone, the name of the show is Bringing Life to Characters. So what is it you do that you put on the page there that get those characters to jump off the page and make them lifelike? In your cases, your fantasy characters, of course, they've got lots of magical powers and stuff a lot of times. So,
right, yeah, my books are always very character based. I'm always for all my stories, I've started with the idea for a character. Like my witch vampire hybrid character, she's 17. It's coming a little bit of a coming of age too. I mean, if you're half witch, half vampire, are you a witch? Are you a vampire? Where do you belong? Right. Mm-hmm. So I try to give them these, even in fantasy, witches, vampires, some traits that are like people can relate to. Right. And this character is also thrown into a human high school and has to pretend to be a human. So what does it feel to be a fish out of water? Right. So those type of things where you're making your characters real. I mean, my Queen Titania has an anxiety disorder. She has panic attacks, but she's been handed the crown to her kingdom. So you can't really have panic attacks when you are the sole monarch of a kingdom, right? So what do you do then? How do you deal with that? And how do you get some coping mechanisms around that? And she's 15. When you're 15, you're gonna talk off the top of your head. And some of the people around her get annoyed by that, right? She gets, very feisty. So those things I think really help make characters real and to readers, right? Like if you see some human characteristics or characteristics that maybe you have or your friends have or something like that just are not perfect. You don't want your characters to be perfect. So I feel like that kind of brings those characters to more real and to life as you feel like you can go on the journey with them.
Do you get people upset with you if you kill off any of your characters? I don't know if you do or not in any of your books, but why'd you do that? Oh, get upset with you.
Yeah, I get upset with myself too. Yeah, I hate it.
Torture them, as you said, too. With all the horrible things that happen.
Some characters do die. Yes, so unfortunate things that you have to make your villain look worse, right?
Yes. So are there any places that you visited or traveled that inspired you to write any of your stories?
Like I said, like the Lovelock One's dystopian book, a lot of it's set in Colorado. So a
Mhm.
lot of that was formed in my mind as I was hiking
Right.
um, through the mountain trails. Um, and I guess I don't think I mean, I have been to Los Angeles. That's a setting for one of my stories. But most, it's funny, I haven't been to a lot of the places where I set my books, but I do a lot of online research. Somebody was like,
Yeah.
oh, have you been there? It's beautiful. I'm like, no, unfortunately not. I have not been there.
Well, we can't afford to do that. Maybe the big shot authors can afford to fly all over the place and go to these locations, but with Google Maps and stuff these days, we can cheat a lot. So, and with everything with the research and stuff. So tell us a little bit. You've got a podcast. Actually, you're doing two podcasts these days. So give us a little bit about your podcast as well.
Right. So my Finding the Magic book podcast brings on, just like you, Andy, brings on authors to talk about their books. It is a book or a book. It is a podcast for readers. So you're going to find out like the characters, the stories, the books, and why the inspiration behind them. So that's a lot of fun. I get to talk to a ton of authors that way. And then the Cal Zone podcast, which is the Colorado Authors League podcast. It's obviously local here to Colorado. So we have our own authors to talk about different writing techniques, different writing styles, inspiration of how you get unstuck if you're stuck from writing. That will be coming out just in a few days, January 15th. So Todd Mitchell, he was super cool. You need to listen to that one. So I get to meet all these tons of awesome people. And I guess to circle back to my Finding the Magic, my tagline is kind of finding the magic. I believe in magic, because for me, as not seeing myself as a creative person initially, I was very surprised that I had this creativity. And then I thought, this is sort of magic. Like, it's magic because you're creating something, right? So
Yeah.
that was a way for me to link all of my crazy thoughts in my head and what I hope people experience and have fun with in books and reading.
So you've been doing the magic one for 5 years, right? So you've had quite a few authors
Right.
you've had on.
Right. Yes. So this is starting my sixth season this January.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where do you find all these authors? Are you just I find so far, at least for me, I reach out and I go, "Would you be on my podcast?" And I rarely get a no. I mean, people say, "Oh, sure." They seem to be very
Of
welcome.
course.
Is that what you kind of run into as well? That people always
I
are.
did initially. Yeah. I started the podcast in 2020 because I was missing going to all those author events that we went to, and we got to
Yep.
meet everyone and my kind of author friends. And I was missing talking to them, and because I was, you're just here by yourself, and everybody else in my house is an engineer and they don't understand. Um, so I started it initially because I thought, well, if I do this podcast, I can talk to my friends about writing, and then I can share that with everybody, and people might discover our books, right? So I thought that's a win-win for me. So it started pretty small, but I get emails from like Penguin and Random House,
Yep.
just and that ask me from their publicists that say, "Hey, do you want to bring this author on?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do."
Well, that's great. When they're reaching out to you, that's good. You're getting some people to watch the show, and that's always great because there are so many podcasts out there. I mean, my gosh, it's like, but they're all on. I'm assuming on the various podcast sites and YouTube. I'm assuming and they're all usually all video too, right? They can be audio or audio video.
Right. So the Spotify platform, which is the platform I publish it on, has the video capability. So I think when you listen on Apple or all of those other ones, you can just listen to them. Or if you go to Spotify, you can see the video. And I also have it on YouTube. So whichever way you like to do it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to see the authors sweat. So ask them the really tough questions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
used to ask the question to everybody, like, if there was one thing like you want to like people to get out of what it is it, and they're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
One thing, I can't break this down to one thing.
So I know you've won quite a few awards. I was looking at some of the different awards that was on there, and I copied a few off of your website, and we're going to cover our faces here with them. But give us a little bit about some of the awards you've won.
Right. So my first one, I guess, the Kingdom of Embers is at the top. So
Mhm.
that I won an EBVY award for Colorado Independent Publishing Association. So that was my first, like, really, I felt like a big real author award.
Yeah.
And that was my really first full length fantasy novel. So that was really fun for me. To Be a Fae Queen has won through Global Book Awards, as well as Azrea, which is my Aztec mythology, which is a middle grade book. And then, like I said before, Independent Book Publishing Association To Be a Fae Guardian audiobook got a silver award from, or Benjamin Franklin Silver Award from IBPA. So yeah, it's really fun to get recognized for something you love doing.
Well, yeah, an audiobook too. I mean, and there's so many awards out there these days too. It's like, which one do you do? And there's usually a cost involved with most of them as well. So some of them are kind of scams. So you got to pick and choose the ones. But it's always nice to have the awards and be able to put a little sticker on there. And Colorado Authors League does awards every year too. So that's always nice. And they have a nice little award ceremony each year. So, what advice do you give to aspiring authors since you kind of came at it a little bit different way? It kind of, I mean, I don't want to say you fell into it, but you didn't really think that was something that you wanted to do. And then you kind of just worked at it and go, wow, I really like it.
Right. I feel like if you are really passionate about your topic, or, and you love to write, just write, just do it, and just learn all you can about, if you want to be published, learn all you can about the industry, decide how you want to be published, and then keep working towards that. I mean, a lot of the Penguin and random authors I talked to, some of them were like, yeah, I mean, I worked on this manuscript, I rewrote it 3 times, it took me 3 years, but they're being published by Random and Penguin House, right? So I think if you are that invested in your craft and you really are passionate about what you've written, then I think there's a place for it. And so I think just, yeah. And really, I mean, one of the major things is finding good people to help you. I mean, usually one person cannot do it all. You need a great editor, you need a great cover person, and people that are trustworthy and we're really invested in helping you your book be the best it can be. So finding those right fit people for you is really important too.
Yeah, and it's a little bit hit and miss too, finding those right people sometimes. Like I said, and I've had a few different editors, I've had a few different cover designs, but yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit to find those. So, any marketing tips that you want to share with anyone, being so successful?
Right. Yeah. So I just got it published like a year and a half ago. So Mickey
Yes.
Mickelson with Creative Edge is my publicist. He is super amazing. So finding the right publicist is a great thing. And, just showing up on social media, and yeah, I love connecting with readers. I feel like my email list is my favorite thing, because almost every email put out, I get somebody reply and tell me something about what they're reading, or what I'm talking about in my email. So that's, those are my best people, because that's where I get my ARC readers from. That's where I get my beta readers from, my reviewers. So, and people that just come back and say, I can't believe you did this, or can you do this?
Well, and you connected me to Mickey, which I thank you for. That was very helpful, and I've got a lot of his authors have been on my show as well. So, but yes, he's very good, and it's always nice. Do you do a lot of events, and do you have any events coming up?
I do. I'm going to Storybook Brewing. I don't know if you've been down there to Colorado Springs. Storybook Brewing, they have an event like every quarter, with about 30 authors each time, about give or take 30 authors. So yeah, look into them. They are
Storybook Brewing.
Storybook Brewing in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
They obviously love books
Yeah.
because that's their theme and they have great beer. So that's a really fun afternoon. It's coming up in February. I'll go down there and do that. I'm doing Authors Rock Roanoke in Roanoke, Virginia on April 18th. And then I'm not sure what else past then, but I definitely want to do some more events later in the year.
Do you do any seasonal craft fairs? That's where I do a lot of my good business in high schools and stuff. Do you do some of those in the holiday season to sell your books? I think you do
I
very
did.
well.
I did one in Wyoming this past year, so I kind of have to wait and see. And I do some local ones. There's like a town. We have a town holiday bazaar here in Superior, so I do that one every year. And yeah, so I just kind of pick and choose um, what works with my schedule. I know they're really successful for you, so I haven't gotten on the whole circuit.
Well, and I think like, a lot of high school ones and stuff like that. I mean, you probably do really well. And I do a lot of author events too, and I learn more at author events than I actually sell books. Usually, I don't sell that many books at author events, but the craft fairs, I'm usually one of the few authors there, so I do really well. But yeah, I think you do well. There is some cost involved in time and setting up tables and stuff, but it's always a good place to meet. And um, getting into them can be a challenge because they usually fill up very fast, especially some of the real popular ones. But I can send you a list one of these days if you'd like, and you can kind of check some of them out.
Oh, that'd be
So,
great.
so we've got your website is your best place. I'll put that up there for people to get a hold of you. Is that correct?
That is, yes. If you go to my website, there are 2 free short stories that you can get when you sign up for my newsletter. So that's a fun place to start reading if you would like to check out my books.
And do you put out a newsletter regularly? Is it once a month, once a quarter, or?
Yeah, it's usually every week I try
Oh,
to
really?
put
Wow. Yeah.
something out there. Yeah, so my next email should go out tomorrow. But yeah, so because I have my new audiobook coming out, I will send out codes to people free codes for audiobook lovers to
Sure.
my email list if they would like to listen and hopefully provide a review for that. Yeah, so lots of fun things like that.
You say it should go out tomorrow. It's like, is it written yet?
It is not written yet. That's what I'm like. Oh wait, I meant to do that.
I may be keeping you from that, huh? So, well, we are past an hour. So, was there anything else you wanted to cover, talk about?
No, yeah, this is a lot of fun. Always love talking about my characters in my books and
Yeah,
what's
no,
coming
it's
next.
great
So,
hearing.
yeah.
You and I have talked a few times at events, so we've run into each other and stuff, but never got into a deep dive. So it was great hearing about all your books. I'll have to tell Kim because I know Kim likes a lot of. She's a vampire kind of person, so if you've got some vampires, she may have read some of your books. I don't know. She's got her Kindle, and she's got I don't even know how many books are on her Kindle. She reads. I mean, she's one of those fast readers too. She can read a book in a day or two, and then she's on to the next one, the next one, the next one. So,
Okay,
well,
so if she especially loves vampires and vampire lore, she should read Of Witches and Vampires, which is a short story, and then Kingdom of the Damned, which is the prequel to the Kingdom Journals, but that's by like real vampire novel. That's
yeah,
just vampires. So yeah.
yeah, she was. I know at one time she was really big in that, and she still is. She likes her romance books too. She likes her motorcycle guy writing motorcycle romance books and stuff as well. So she's big into a lot of different stuff, and then she reads some mystery stuff too. So she's pretty much covers all. But
Oh,
she's
good.
constantly got her Kindle. I mean, she's got her Paperwhite, and she's always reading out of that and stuff. So I sometimes can be talking to her at the dinner table and have a whole conversation with her, and she won't remember it because she's so engrossed in whatever she's reading. So yeah, so
You have to put on your motorcycle muscle shirt so she'll pay attention to you.
need to throw on some leather, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tricia, great. Appreciate you being on the show. It was great talking with you and seeing you again. I'm sure we will run into each other maybe at a Cal event down the road or maybe other author events and stuff. But all the best with your next books, and we will see you in the neighborhood. Maybe who knows?
Yeah. You'll have to ride down to Storybrooke with me sometime. Storybrooke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wrote that one down. I gotta take. take a look into that one and see, because I had not heard of that one. So
Fun.
always good
Well,
to
thank
get.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
So I appreciate having you on. Take care, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, thanks everyone for being on. I'm just going to throw out a quick promo myself here, because my new book came out today. Mayhem in Music City, released today. I'm also giving away a free book on Amazon until the 16th, Lethal Blues, which is book 9 in the same Jarvis Band series. So I hope you'll check that out. Next week, I'm going to have on Monday night at 6 p.m. I'm going to have John Didakis on, and John's he worked for CNN and Wolf Blitzer. So John and I met at Killing Nashville and talked a few times. He has his own podcast as well. So it'll be great getting to get a deep dive and get in the inside of the early days of CNN and writing his books as he's done. So, but take care, everyone. We will see you next Monday night.